Okay, good early morning, everybody. As we move into our week close, so it looks like we're going to do really well in our weeklies, and hopefully we're going to move up today. Pre-market is looking excellent. I'll show you guys some images I took in my Thinkorswim early morning, so that's looking good. You never know; those don't always hold, but sometimes they move even higher. Um, I'm sure you all saw or heard the news now with Israel responding to Iran's latest bombings with their own. That sent gold up. It initially sent Bitcoin and the stock market down. Looks like gold has calmed down. It now looks like Bitcoin and MicroStrategy and Coinbase are both up, and the stock market is only down a little in the future. So let's see what it holds. Pretty intense times. Okay, let's jump into this. So on CONY, I always tend to start with CONY. So 2.01% moved up yesterday to 218, right? So we had that 5 consecutive, actually it was only 4 in CONY and 5 in MSTY. So after 4 days we moved up. Same thing over here. We outperformed it again, so 2.05 to 2.01, right? So we closed up in CONY to 2338. And I'm seeing a trend there on these daily charts, the few days that we've risen lately. We've taken off, moved up a couple hours into the open, up fairly substantially. Like I think coin was at 228 and then closed at 218, which is still, $5 up from its previous close, but we're not holding those big gains. So I'd love to see that start to switch. Same thing in MSTY and same thing in the underlying in BTC. All right, so what happened? Again, they didn't post the dailies of the prices, but I was able, as always, to get the full picture about 3 hours after the market closes. It's that timing right around when the market closes to the next 20 or 30 minutes that they put out these intraday price trades. But I find out what was bought and what was sold. I just don't know always the price. Well, I've updated from yesterday's price because I can always ultimately get the price. Just not in time to update you guys. But my accuracy is 95% plus. So let's look at, here you can see what happened on one of them. So 300 contracts were written. Now notice I tend to color code these. So these are the ones expiring today in yellow. And then the green is we actually took one off the table. Okay, so we bought 730 contracts that were going to expire today, way up at the 277, right? So we only had to pay a penny and we bought those back yesterday. So basically we made 317,243 and we only had to pay $730, right, to buy that out. All right, so the other two, we will close those out for similar, a penny or 2 or 3. What we did was we put on a new trade of 300 contracts 1 week out. So I color coded these orange versus yellow. So those were written at 255, right? Because we're trading down in the 218 range. So it's not a problem to write at 255 for the end of next week. That's almost 17% for 6 trading days. So I'm reasonably comfortable that that's a good position. Didn't yield a lot of money though, because this is where I had to guess, right? Basically this option traded between 150 and 350, right? So the most this thing was ever worth was 350. The least it was worth was $1.50. So I picked kind of in the middle. And again, at 79,000, it isn't going to matter. Maybe it's 83, maybe it's 75. In the scheme of things, once I update it with the actuals, it doesn't matter. So let's look at synthetics because they put a position on in synthetics also. So the same 300, right? And again, I had to guess these numbers within a low and high range, right? So they they bought 300 calls at this 1150, right? So when we're doing the 1150 strike, 1150, I'm in MSTY, sorry guys. So 260, so we're doing a 260 strike here. The close was 218. So we're quite a ways from that. But when they buy a call and sell a put, that put is so far away from there that their calls sometimes cost them more money. In this case, they actually get more in the puts, right? So we're collecting money there in this scenario because it's so far out of the money. Now, what you wouldn't want to happen, like we got caught in last time, is 4 more weeks of horrible performance, right? Then we'll take a big hit. But the reality is, for now, it doesn't matter, right? It's 72 million of a loss if we close out today because these are 260 strikes and we're only at 218. But that's not really a concern based on where we are, right? We're 4 weeks out today. So we put that on. I used 11 and a half and 50. So that netted us, you can see, we collected 1.5 and we spent 345. So that's 1155, right? And when you add that to where we were before, now we're up to 8.8 million positive on these, right? So even though we have this big liability, it's a paper liability. And again, at 4 weeks, it's of no concern because as soon as we move up $10, we take away 29 million. And we did. This was almost 80 million. I think it was high 79s, low 80. So just moving up the $5 knocked off a big chunk of that. So no concern there, although this number needs to be updated now. That should be F8. I did it where it counts in our payment tabs, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So let's continue on the 260. So you see what we did there. Hopefully we do really well on these and we start moving up. I'm pretty bullish that BTC is going to do something. We have the halving in about 12 hours. I'll show you guys the clock also on that if you're interested at some point. Let's go back to well, we can look at the actives. So now here's our active. So I put this in orange, all right, just to show that it was taken down at the penny level. Okay, so our counts 15,840. These are all updated, right? So 218 we're up, 2338 we're up. Implied volatility is slightly down to flat. Not a lot of movement there. I didn't see any volume worth changing the chart out for today. Let's go over to cash. So I don't believe there were any shares added, but there may have been on why they put those positions on. Let me look at it. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, on MSTY there's no shares added, so flat on MSTY. But here we added 275,000. So you can think of whatever the price is when people added this was around $23. You know, that's substantial, right? That's when you get that kind of cash flow is when you can see, right? That's 6.325 million, right? 6,325,000 just using a flat 23 number. We closed at 2338. So it could have been slightly higher, call it 6.5. And our cash position, which sometimes matters, a lot of times it doesn't. But if you follow it across, what we did is we moved some money around, right? we had it here, we pulled it out of here to put these positions on, right? But the change in cash was 8 million, so we know where 6.3 million was new shares bought, right? Otherwise moving the money around, because remember we added this additional treasury yield that expires out on 4/15. So let's take a look at active and see what else we can draw from there. We've been holding on. This is kind of something that I'd like to see us get back over this 220-ish, right? Let me see what I'm showing. I'm going to update you guys on this chart, but maybe I'll actually show it right now. Let me just make sure it's the coin one, and then I can take it back. All right, so on this one, this is about 10 minutes ago, right? I'm getting updated on my second monitor, but I took a print screen. So here we are in coin. What you're looking at is I have this set for 1 minute. So this is yesterday's trading, right? I'll look at the daily when I'm trying to look for trends, or if I'm going to trade or do anything like that. So we started out in we opened, right? This is the aftermarket on Wednesday. This is the opening on Thursday. And again, within a couple of hours, we're already up into the day. So think of this as, depending on where you are, if you're on the East Coast, right, then this is a 9:30 to 4 p.m., right? If you're West Coast, it's 6:30 to 1, and if you're anywhere in between, it's an hour or two difference, right? So anyway, this is how we traded yesterday, but this gray area is all pre-market, right? This line is typically midnight. So all of a sudden at midnight, now it's not the halving because we're about 12 hours away, but the happening does happen on 4/19 later in the day. So here we are, guys, at 225, right? At this time it was 224.37 by 225.14, right? So I can look at it live, and it hasn't changed a lot on the live. But I wanted you just to see sometimes what I check or what I look at here. And this is the same tool I use. Thinkorswim. I haven't made the transition to swab. I think for me, since I do Forex, a lot of sophisticated options, I was in the very last group of people to go to swab. So I don't go until May 10th. And they wanted to make sure that Thinkorswim was going to work real well over there. All right, so going back to what we're doing here, not a lot other than I'm reasonably happy with them putting on another position for next week. They'll put a lot more on later today, I suspect, as they close out some of these for cheap money, right? Because there's nothing here that's in any danger. You know, even in the pre-market at 225, we're not going to run up to 270. We're not going to run up to 262 or 277. We could get close to this in a few days, but we'll see. That's for next week. And they aren't, frankly, a lot of money. The bulk is here. It'll be interesting to see what they roll it up to, right? They'll do a 426, and they'll probably go out somewhere 260, 255-ish, somewhere in that range. All right, so let's look at our holdings. So here's what I was saying about, you know, we're underwater. We're mainly underwater because they rolled this 4 days ago or whatever. They rolled it early in the week because they could, right? And it's 79 million or 72 million behind right now, but not really a big deal. So the shares, as I mentioned, went up. That brought 6.3 million in cash. I don't always show this, but it's fairly priced. The actual price closed at 23.38, and the way you calculate NAV for these funds is the share count divided by shareholder equity, which is all your cash, your liabilities, and your current option positions. So you can look here and see, other than this new one, right? This new one, my guesstimate on this one was we sold it for $265. Like I said, it traded between $1.50 and $3.50, right? So I just used $265. And then when we look at holdings, it's down to $1.72, right? So it all depends on when we put it on what the actual price is. Look at this, this is only worth a penny. Technically, I'm surprised that they didn't close that out and put a new position on already, but they will. So this one's 2.5 cents, right, at the 262s, and this one's 4 cents. Oh, this is the one they closed out, right? This one dropped to 1 cent and they actually closed it out. So I'll take it off my list. I added it. I mean, I took it off the other list, but I didn't take it off of this list. But no real issue. You know, we've already been paid these monies, and we expect to get those. And there'll be a bunch of 426 ones added. I put the 255 here. Let's go to the important stuff. Let's go to payments. Okay, so this one, our synthetic is at 19 million, right? And our short call is at 14 million. All we added was that 76,000, right? Share count, did I get that updated? Let me double check. Yep, sure did, 825. I'm linking one tab to another now. So if I update it in one place, I can read it in multiple places. And I hadn't always been doing that. We talked about cash, we talked about collecting that. Let's go back to holdings and let's look at payments. Okay, so 16,825 is correct. The only, where that counts, if you think about it, when you look at this total cash, right? This is what we say is eligible, right? So if they were to pay us all the income we brought in, they could pay us $2. What they typically shoot for is using the short call and saving the synthetic revenue. But that's not always the case, right? So we had a credit coming forward. So we're looking pretty good here with this, you know, 33 million net income. So right now, if we were to get paid, my guess is they pay us $1.20. Well, you guys aren't going to be happy with $1.20. I mean, it's still a great annualized dividend. But, you know, after getting $2.79 last month, I want to get $2 or more. Well, in order to get that, we need an awesome week, this 426 week, and going into the following week, we need the same kind of thing to get us, you know, a $2 plus, even though we're at $2 here. I don't see them. I see them, like I said, maybe $1.20, but it's too early to forecast with accuracy. Okay, guys, that covers everything there. Let's go take a look at my MSTY. This is the one that we took the big hit on, right? So let's see how we're doing. So up 1.78, and we were only up 1.25, so it didn't quite perform as well. All right. They weren't up much, but at least they went up after 5 consecutive days of going down. So not unlike CONY, we had activity by writing a 9-contract naked call. They also added to their synthetic 1150. So they added 9 contracts. Again, I had to guess because they didn't post the 2 or 3 times that I checked. I'm just not always available right at that, you know, West Coast 4 o'clock time, 4 to 4:30 to grab those. And why they post them and then take them down, I don't know. Yet I get the count right afterwards. So anyway, That's the status. So what on the 9 contracts here, these cost us more money, right? Because unlike CONY, where we're underneath the synthetic, and also, guys, by the way, we should be proud. We wrote this at a low number, right? So we closed at 1209.16, right? 1209.16. So on our synthetic, we've kind of learned here. So we have a $4.2 million profit if we had to close that out. Well, that doesn't count toward a payout, right? Just like that huge loss, but it's an indication of the direction you're going. So up here, it costs us $205,000 to write an 1150. In other words, we had to buy a call that was already $55. 55 of the 228 were already in equity, if you will, right? They were the amount that it was above the 1150. And so that's why the put, right, doesn't get as much. Whereas when it's the other way, if your actual positioning is the other way, then you get paid to write those calls. But you better hope it gets there so you don't have that liability. Okay, so 4.2 million gain there. If anything, we lost a little bit of money, right, in our 3087 from our 3004. So not a lot, 83,000, right? In the scheme of things, not a lot of money. So let's follow the tab over. And as I mentioned to you, so there are 9 contracts here. I did a guesstimate between, I think, 23 and 43, and I used 33. They wrote a 1,400, and we'll look at the active and see our positions. And again, it's colored. Now, they didn't close anything out here, right? Now, we'll look at what the values are in our holdings, but all of their stuff is still out there. So we have about 2.3 million where we've already collected the cash and counted it, but we haven't secured it. But there's little chance that we won't secure it when you look at these strike prices, right? 1635, 1670, 1505, 1290. And in pre-market, we're trading at 1255. So I'll show you that chart a little bit later, guys, because I took a snapshot of it so you could see that. Well, actually, I think I can do that right now, just for a distraction. So here we are, same chart, same type of chart, right? The gray is Wednesday pre-market, Thursday in black is all of the U.S. stock time hours, right? And then all of a sudden in a little dotted vertical line is the midnight. So here we are in the morning now, and the last trade, whoops, I covered it, is right around the 1255. And on my chart, I'm showing 1255 by 1269 because it's kind of a dead time at the moment. It'll heat up in the real pre-market, right, in another hour to an hour and a half. But great indication, right? We closed at 1209 and we're already talking 1255. I wouldn't even mind if it ran past those 1290 position, because we got $14 for that. I updated that with the correct price. So it's 39,200, right? We can run all the way to 1304 and we only lose the 39,000. That would give us a lot of money in the synthetic, right? So let's go take a look at that again. We've got a $4 million profit, so I haven't calculated, but if you figure we're at 1150, it's dollar for dollar when you move up and you're past the strike price, right? So our 228, for instance, just to give you an example of how this math works. So we've got 669 contracts, right? So if we were to go up $20 and we went from 1209 to 1229, what would that do? Okay, that would be 20 times 669 times 100. So that would be 66,920. That seems small. Did I take the full 669? Oh, I did a plus. No wonder. I thought it was a small number. 1.38, 1.3 million. Much, much better, right? So if you take that and then you have that same gain going the other way. Your put's going to go down, maybe not the whole 20, maybe 18. So you're talking 2.5 million, right? That just by moving up 20 points there above that, you've got a 2.5 million gain. And that's exactly what we need to start doing to offset that loss. So all of a sudden, this thing is sitting at 6.7, right? So that's how those work. Once you've done it as long as I have, you can just see it without even thinking it through. But I don't expect other people to have that capability. That's why I try and educate and teach you guys, and appreciate all your comments. It really does encourage me to, hopefully I don't bore you. Just tell me, hey, get to the point, Bruce. So let's do a little bit of that more now. Let's finish out on April and see how our cash looks. So we stayed at 2.8. Remember, guys, I told you, it's not a hard thing. They have this thing called creation units, and they're triggered at 25,000. So if they don't have a 25,000 basis move in shares, they don't share it with us, right? If it goes down 19, they don't bother. I don't know what they're triggered to make another unit. It's 25,000, but I don't know if they do 49,000. Do they only trigger one, or do they count both at that point? Oops, I didn't update these. Okay, we're not going to see a lot of change though, with no shares coming in. I'll update that, but it's really not. You'll see it updated in my holdings. I just didn't transfer it over here. So we're looking pretty decent in this. I'm feeling good about this early market stuff because this war cycle hasn't been good for the markets. It's kind of been good for gold and the equities I trade there, but it hasn't been for Bitcoin and these. And yet today they went down initially when the news came out, but they don't seem to be impacting. I'm hoping it's some kind of halving impact. But that doesn't really get going for a few weeks, but maybe we'll get that bounce. All right, so let's look at the active. Okay, so these are the ones I was talking about. We really haven't, I've updated these, right? So we moved up in implied volatility. MSTY moved up some, Mr. moved up some. This is the key stuff, right? We're going to close all those out except this 9 we added, which has got a week to go, and even that's 15.78, right? Out of the money. So these, well, again, this one is now only 66.9, but again, we're not talking much money here. These are pittance and money compared to this, right? So the 1670 has no chance of getting a 38% run on today. So we'll look pretty good there to capture all the money we already have in place. So let's go take a look at that. Let's look at holdings and then payments. So these are all updated. These numbers, each of these boxes are what go in my cash thing, and then I can look how did the cash change from day to day. But this is attractive for us, right? We're setting on 4.2 million. And you can see it very easily when the call is on top of the put when it's bigger. Like in CONY, we're 72 million in the hole, right? But that's because they rolled early and they got a much higher. We picked a low price and we're beating that price. So we're looking pretty good there. So we closed at 30. Fair value is 29.96. So we're trading at 4 cents premium, right? I suspect if we move up today, people might buy in. Remember my 3-day rule? I might buy some CONY today but I might wait till Monday. I'm not going to add any MSTY yet because I may wait for earnings on 429 unless I see the real impact. But I own a lot of both of these right now, so I don't really have to add much. I'm already receiving more than enough income on the dividend side. So again, nothing super on the cash. You know, they're only deploying 2 treasuries. They haven't moved into that third treasury. But again, they got 2.8 million shares. You know, CONY's been around longer, much longer, and so it's got 16,800,000, right? So it's got 7 times the share count. And like anything, you know, MSTY is young in its inception time. All right, let's look at payments, the key stuff here. So didn't change a lot here. We did add a little bit, right, because I add our old 17 number, which is that huge loss, to my other tab here on my 1150s. And that's where I pick up the 3 million. So those hurt us together because these are paper only, right? Now, if we sell some of these because people get out of the fund or something, then you'll see something added to it. But overall, you know what? Considering we had that huge loss, so that's still sitting there, right, at 2.8 million shares. We've lost 26 million. We've lost $9.48. But look at our short call income, which is what's a lot of times determined what they're going to pay out. So we've got 4.579, right, on those guys. And we're not going to lose any more of that. So when we write these new ones, right, then we're going to have additional income. And at the end of the day today, they're going to write several for next week. So wherever they write, we just don't want to run by those calls. So hopefully they're going to go 15% out of money and we can just stair step. I mean, it's kind of the way it works in the stock market. If you watch a chart go up, it's typically like climbing stairs, right? The old Stairmaster. So you go over, up, over, up, over, up. You watch down when the bear market hits, and it's like what took maybe 2 months to climb goes down in 3 days. So it's just the nature of stock markets and how they work. Okay, so that covers that. So I'm optimistic that we're going to get $1 or $2 here, even with this big loss. Let's see. So CONY's looking good. MSTY's recovering. Early market signs look good. That's all I got for you today. Have a great day, and hopefully we do well with both CONY and MSTY. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This is for fun and education. See ya. Bye.